All right, we are embarking on the next phase of the build, and that phase is preparing the frame and the suspension and just getting basically the stance of the car right. I'm going to describe a couple of the different things that kind of go into this, just some derby terminology so that you can kind of visualize it and understand it, and then we'll go down to the shop and we'll put it into practice. So you'll get treated to some more of my art. So if this is roughly the frame of a car, kind of goes like this, and then sometimes it kind of comes up like this. So but this is roughly the frame of a car, and you'll have, you know, a wheel back here, and then, you know, your A-arms will kind of go like this, and then you'll have a wheel here, and that's this is the wheel that obviously steers. This is called your humps back here. But this is basically kind of a normal frame of the car. Now, as the car takes impacts to the front, usually where they want to bend upward, right in this area, okay, I'll kind of circle it with a dotted line. Your firewall is going to roughly be here for the body of the car. Your car is going to want to nose upward like that, right? Some other considerations: you've got your radiator here, you got your bumper here. You're going to want to protect that radiator. So when you're running a car in a stock configuration and you're not allowed to really do anything, this is going to be some problems in that you're not going to necessarily be able to get your bumper high enough to protect your radiator from taking a hit. And you may or may not have the ability to stiffen certain areas of the frame to prevent it from bending upward right here, especially if you're going to hit with the front end a lot. It's not like the old days where guys would constantly hit with the rear end of the car. That's hard to do. So the first thing I'm going to show you is stance. So when you want to stance a car, we're stancing the car to really protect the radiator and get this bumper up. And so when we stance a car, it's going to look kind of like this. So try my best to draw this, but here's your humps, and then it kind of comes up, and then like that. So there's your upper A-arm, and then you got one way to stance a car is you got a big tire, and then you got a smaller tire back here. Okay, so this front is higher than the back. Okay, now the frame itself is still straight. So this is a stanced car. Okay, and the good thing about this, you got your bumper here, you got your radiator here. So because this car is stanced, it's going to be very difficult for another car to come over the top of your bumper and take out your radiator. Okay, this is the radiator here. Okay, now that doesn't address the problem of the car, you know, nosing upward and bending here at the area near the firewall or the crush boxes. Okay, that's not going to address that. In fact, sometimes because the car is stanced like that, that can even speed that up. Okay, so to address both the radiator, to address the radiator protection by stancing your car, and additionally to address the bending of the car at the firewall, we come to the final evolution, which is a tilted or pitched car. Okay, and so I'll do my best again to draw this. Car comes up at an angle, same as the car that's stanced, but then You're going to make some cuts around here so that you can actually then bend the frame down and bring this to a straight line. Okay? So right here, you're bending the frame, you've still got your bumper, you still got your radiator, you still got your upper arm, and you still got your wheel and your wheel. So this is a tilted or a car that's been pitched. Okay, so here's your kind of your straight frame car. Here is a car that's been stanced. You can stance in a couple ways. You could stance with a big wheel, bigger tire. You could stance it by welding the suspension down. So you jack the car up, and then once the car is at a certain suspension, then you will weld underneath the arms to kind of lock the suspension in place. But then the ultimate evolution is doing a combination of that, and then also there's multiple ways to tilt a car. You can cut and then fold down and then re-weld, or you can, you know, so there's cutting and welding. There's cold bending, which is basically you just use force to just cold bend the car down. So now you have enough height in your bumper to protect your radiator, and you also have kind of a reverse bend here in the frame, which is going to slow down the car from wanting to nose upward. Okay, it's not going to prevent it. Eventually they all nose up. But tilting or pitching a car is going to slow that down. You're going to be able to make far more hits with the front end of your car. So after getting a lot of different advice from a lot of other builders and friends of mine, and looking at the frame of the 79 Continental, we're not going to get much gain out of tilting the car. So we will not be tilting the car in this year's build. We are going to do some things in this area using some of the rules. We can plate some of the frame and some other things to slow this from bending. We're definitely not going to leave it in a stock setup because we've got to protect our radiator. So we'll be stancing the car, obviously. This is going to be what we do right here. So it's going to be a little challenging. We do have a big front tires that I put on the other day. You might have saw me walking around those in my bumpers and brackets video. But we've got 16s back here. So it's not going to be a stance just based simply off of the tires. We're going to have to weld the suspension down solid. So that is the video that I'm going to show you. We are going to jack the car up, and I'm going to show you how to weld your front suspension solid so that you can stance your car appropriately. So here we go. Back in the shop, and we are getting ready to start on fixing our front suspension. I'm going to take this wheel off and show you what I'm talking about. Explained it a little bit in the previous part of the video, but it'll make more sense showing you here. So here's the upper arm and here's the lower arm. The way that we're gonna get this bumper height up to where it needs to be, the bottom, per our rules, the bottom of this bumper can be 24 inches from the ground, and we want to try to get it to that maximum point. So the first thing that we're going to do, which is going to strengthen all of this as well, is we're going to take this piece out, and then this upper arm is going to get welded down to the top of the frame. That's going to give us about an inch right there. That's going to be completely welded up. That's going to give us an inch right there. And then the other thing we're going to do is we're going to, once that's done, we're going to jack up the car so that this lower suspension comes down more. And then we will underneath, it's kind of hard to see, there's a big opening there where this lower arm is bolted in to the cross member. Once that's where we want it, we will weld some steel across that, essentially locking up the front suspension and making it just one solid setup. So I'm gonna get this all taken out and prepped to be welded onto the top of the frame. Come on. Look at that. Doesn't want to clear it. That's funny. All right. We've cut off this middle piece here so that this can seat to the top of the frame. The next step that we're gonna have to do here is remove the ball joint, because if we just weld this to the top, we're not gonna be able to actually lift the suspension, because there's only so much space. This spindle is only so tall from here to here. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna remove this ball joint and replace it with a heavier duty ball joint that has a longer bolt. And then we'll put a spacer on top of the bolt, and then we'll bolt it from the bottom. So I am just removing these years of dirt that's crusted in here, so I can remove this damn ball joint. I'm not gonna force you to watch me clean this up, so in a second I'll show you what it looks like all cleaned up. Okay, you can kind of start to see now a ball joint forming. I'm gonna cut off these rivets and unbolt this so that I can remove this upper arm from the ball joint, and then after that I will remove the bottom from the ball joint, the bottom nut, and we'll be able to replace this ball joint. I've almost got this ball joint out. We'll see how this goes. I think this nut must be tapered, because this wrench is not wanting to do anything. There we go. Okay, now ball joint is smacked. Smack the ball joint out of here if we can. Come easy. There we go. Okay, we got it off the spindle at least. So now Oh, after much grinding, hammering, and prying, I have the rivets out of there. This is what your upper arm should look like when it's all cleaned up. I got these Moog ball joints. Let's see. I don't know how these are gonna fit. Might have to, yeah, they're not really a good size. Probably gonna have to, probably going to have to widen this opening. Also, they're not really long enough either. So, I don't know what we're gonna do with these. Okay. The way we're gonna do this, because I can't get new ball joints and I don't have the proper tools to really do this the right way, we're gonna do this the CRUD way. So I'm gonna cut the end off here, which now that I know I'm gonna be doing the other one this way, this will be a lot easier to get the other ball joint out. I'll cut here and here, then I'll grind here to make this a little wider. I'll set the ball joint in here, and then I will reconstruct kind of the outer of the ball joint and maybe even use a little thicker material, which, you know, if I do it right, it should be as strong or stronger than what I was gonna do originally, which was just drop these in, bloop, and weld them. So I'm gonna cut this off. All right, so a lot of grinding to do. And like that, boom, she's in there. Nice. All right. Gonna set this up so we can weld it properly. Like this. I don't want to melt all the grease inside there, so I'm just gonna very carefully, I'm just gonna do a few little zaps, just weld it slowly, let it cool in between shots and see how that goes. And once I get this baby completely in here, then I'll figure out what I'm gonna wrap around here. So let's get the welder set up. Got this welded in there for now. I'll come up with something to go along the front. Got some washers in there, got a lock washer in there, and now I'm gonna tighten this down. And well, before I do that, actually, I'm gonna lower the suspension. Tack weld this on. We continue to run into challenges here. The shape is just not working out. I cut this strut here so that I could get full extension, which I have now, but now this is not long enough. I think what I'm going to do at this point is I want to mount this flush with this piece of reinforcement here, and to do that I need to cut a few sections out of this. So I think what I'm going to do is, and this curve here is not helping, I like to sit right in that little flat area and just weld it, be able to weld it right to this line and up and over here. So I think to do that, I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna cut here. Alright, see how that looks when I'm done. Alright, we got this cut. Let's see if this is going to work now. Yeah, maybe. If I cut a little strip off here, I think that'll work quite nicely. Weld that, and weld underneath. That should give us a little better chance at the height that we want. Come down with it. Or we go like that. I kind of like that, guys. Not gonna lie. This bracket is a problem, though. But we're gonna have to shorten it a little bit more. That's perfect, but it's just, I think we need, yeah. Okay, in the end, here's what I had to do, guys. So I'll show you the other ball joint for comparison. I just couldn't get this set up long enough to get the height that I want. So if this is the other ball joint here, what I did was I basically lengthened the ball joint with a bolt, welding it, smoothing it out, and then with some large nuts and washers, I created something that would sheath that entire thing, so keep it from bending, and just generally make it tougher. Still a little worried about it bending in here, but you can't solve everything, I guess. So now this sheath is welded to the bolt, so even if those welds inside break, and there's still movement there. I left a little gap at the top. Obviously I didn't weld it to the top of the ball joint. So now this will fit in here like that, and this will weld solid to the side of the frame. I don't know if I'm going to do the traverse side this way. I'm really not happy with this solution. I still got to weld a piece over this, and I really got to weld this super solid to the car. So, oh, by now I think you guys know I love to reuse stuff. So if you can see this piece right here that I took off earlier, I cut it down to just the bend part there, and that's what I'm going to use to weld right in here like this, and I think that'll make it pretty sturdy. So let's do that. All right, I think this turned out really nice. So got that piece welded on, still hot. Plug welded all the little gaps there. Still a tiny little gap right there. I might weld something over it, but the best thing about it is that we still can turn the car, which is what you want. So hopefully this will be a nice sturdy setup. All right, I've cut these two plates. One is gonna go above and one is gonna go below, and then I'll weld two pieces along the side as well. All right, got this all welded up. Hopefully you can see that plate, some old bent and rusty bolts that I welded down the sides. So in addition to this being welded solid up here, got this welded solid up here, so this is all one solid unit. It's not moving anywhere. The spring is really just for show. It really has no purpose at this point, but easier to leave it in there than take it out. And so yeah, this is a completely done front suspension, passenger side, driver's side next. Well, skip ahead to the punchline of this joke. This was the first one I did. You can see there, that's nicely welded to the side of the frame, and kind of our own custom sheathed and extended ball joint. Okay, I went ahead and did the whole other side. So again, you can see better here. It's completely sheathed, extended, and sheathed in some really thick nuts, and all welded solid. Drilled a couple holes so I could plug weld it to the frame. Welded completely around the top and to the side. So this side's pretty much done, and we're gonna put the wheel on it, and let's see if the height on this side is able to match what we were able to get for height on the other side. Well, I can't say I'm super pleased with the alignment. The camber also is a little crazy for me, but it is what it is at this point. The height over here, let's just measure it again. We are looking at 21 inches. Over here we are looking at, looks like about 22 inches.
Yep. So I'm about an inch off.